All right. Good evening, everyone. We are currently 33 and we would proceed with today's class. So, the feedback I got is that many of us are having problems with Novi Pro. Obviously, a lot has happened since Novi Pro relaunched. Before they relaunched, it was possible to it was possible lo- to host your Power BI platform on Novi Pro's site. But after they switched to payment model, that is why most of you are having the issues. So what's going to happen is that during the course of the week, I would look for what other possible alternative there is for hosting Power BI. I already have my Novi Pro account. I can still host various jobs on Novi Pro. And aside that, I also have a Microsoft developer account. So that was what now made me I don't really use Novi Pro anymore. So sorry for that hitch. How many of us, before we go into the class for today, how many of us were able to do the assignment as regards the chart type, the various chart type? Now it's important you we follow instructions because um, this is part of what is going to keep you on the job. Okay, you will get your two skills will get you the job, but what is going to keep you in the job is those transferable skills, those soft skills, paying attention, adaptability, your mindset, and all those are what is going to keep you on the job. So please and please, the feedback is very, very low. I had hoped there were more feedback than this. Whatever was your challenge, I don't know, because I know I made it very clear at the last class. So we had a week to get it done. So to as many of you as that did not do the assignment, please go back and do it. I know the information, the notebook was shared to many of us, you know, as regards what we should do and finish up the last Power BI so that when we come next week, we are going to host it on the particular plan that I will communicate to us during the week. I will look for an alternative to Novi Pro. Okay, with that said, let us move on to today's class. How many of us accessed the data set? The data set from the Nigerian Economic Summit group. If you accessed the data set and had a look at it, please indicate. So I'm going to share my screen now and we commence with today. Now, the essence of that data set is so that we can carry out what is called quantitative and qualitative analysis. Now, when you're just a brief description as to what qualitative and quantitative analysis is. Many of us know what ice cream is, fan yogurt, and all that. So, if you go to a restaurant and they sell ice cream, and you're asked to do a quantitative analysis about the ice cream shop, quantitative analysis about the ice cream shop has to do with the number of ice creams they sold at the particular day you visited. Okay, that is a quantitative analysis. Then, what is the size of containers they have? Do they have big containers? Do they have the 5 liter containers? Do they have the 2 liter containers? That is also a kind of that is also the kind of question you get for a quantitative analysis. Qualitative analysis, the flavors they had, what flavor? You know, you cannot give a number to flavor. So that is a qualitative analysis. What color of flavors do they have? Strawberry, banana flavor, that is qualitative analysis. Color can't be quantified, so that's qualitative analysis. So now that we now understand what qualitative and quantitative analysis is, now let's look at the data sets. I'm going to share my screen now. I believe we can all see my screen. That's the Power BI environment. We're going to get the data sets. Now we've opened the Power BI environment. Going to Excel workbook. This is where the data set is. So I'm clicking on it. All of you can see Nigerian NECG household survey. Now it's opening. Now, for those of us who viewed the data set, you'll notice that there are two tables in the data set. There is a table that has to do with the code book, because for each of the columns in the data set, there are codes. There are multiple responses. So there are particular questions that have the yes or no. There are particular questions that have the code 1 to 5. You know, there are some questions that say 1 means um, um, 1 means let me just quickly check. There are some that will tell you that 1 means most likely, and then 5 means very likely, something like that. So multiple response. So we are not loading the code book. We are going to load this one. It's coming up. It's trying to preview the sample. Now see, the notice is saying that the data preview has been truncated because of size. Now this particular data set has 202 columns. 202 columns. Now what we are dealing with now is a real life data set, real life dirty data set. The way the data set will be, use case when you start working. So we are not going to load directly. We are now going to go to transform. We are doing our ETL process, the extract, transform, and load. So we are transforming the data. Let's wait for Power BI to load it. It's currently loading. It's still loading. Let's wait for Power BI to load. Good. It has loaded. So now the Power Query, this is the Power Query screen. So see the bottom here is saying 252 columns, then over 1,000 rows. So columns, remember this is columns 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have 252 of these columns. So now because we are dealing with yes and no responses, just so we see, there are some columns that are not yes and no. See this one, LGA, Aba South, you know. So we're dealing with yes and no. Now, when you're dealing with quantitative and qualitative analysis, you take it step by step. So now we're going to do with a yes and no. This is not a yes and no. Respondent age 18. If you look at the filter column, it's only a yes. You can see it's only showing yes. So now the columns we want to look at the following columns. We want to look at the columns that is asking if there is a head of the house in that house. So let's keep scrolling to see the column that says head of household. Now this is it, head of household. So this is the first column we're dealing with, head of household. So now, first of all, we're going to now start cleaning up our data so that we can now start our analysis. So we'll use 4 columns to work with. We're going to work with 4 columns. So the first column is head of house. So I'm clicking on this head of house and I'll replace values. Now notice that we have multiple entries here. We have 1.yes. Now we want to unify this particular column so that we have just yes and no. So we're going to go to what? Replace values.
Okay, sir. Hello, sir.
Yes,
I think you have a question which I before I even ask somebody else have already asked. So just to help us with the context, from a stakeholder's angle, if I was
yes,
being called upon, probably I work with federal housing estate or Nigerian census or something like that, Bureau of Statistics or something like that. Um,
yes,
I want to look at it from that angle of me being a data analyst there, and my manager asking me to work on this kind of data set. So the same
yeah.
question somebody asks is, why are we dealing with the head of house column? So let's start from the beginning as per, you know how Dava Patel does that, talking about cinematic view, giving us the idea of what the problem was, that situation, then what is the task ahead of us, and the action we want to take, and then the result we are hoping to get. Can we break it down in that way, sir? Is it possible?
I I was coming to that, which was why I'm still
All right.
saying that we're starting with the head of house. I said something that quantitative and qualitative analysis. Now, what we're doing is qualitative analysis. And when I started, I said we are dealing with yes and no. Before I launched it, I said that we will notice that there are columns that have multiple responses. But first of all, we want to deal with yes and no. I now said the first approach is we're looking at there are 4 columns. We can't go through the whole 252 columns of these data sets. I now said we're going to go through only 4 columns. Now, which was why I said how many of us went through the data set, and only 4 persons said they went through the data set. I wouldn't wait for the remaining of us to go through the data set, but I'll forge ahead. And maybe while we're forging ahead, some of us will now be able to catch on. Now, the data set has 252 columns. Now, this is a sample data set by Nigerian Economic Summit Group. Now, they wanted to answer particular questions to be able to know the to be able to segment and know the particular per capita income of each person. So, first of all, we're trying to clean up the data set so that we can pick up the yes and no columns. So I have identified 4 columns. So we're on the first column first. So we're trying to clean up that first column. Okay. So where our goal is to do is to do an analysis of this survey data. So first things first is to look at the yes and no column. So the first yes and no column is the house, the head of house column. Does the does the house sampled have who a breadwinner? So that is a yes and no. So first of all, let me cancel this and go back to the filter column. You will see that it's not a yes and no. We have one dot yes, 2 dot no. So we're first going to normalize this particular column to give us yes and no response. So I've selected on this and now say replace value. So replace value of 1 dot yes with just yes and say okay. Now we have all the 1 dot yes replaced to just yes. Now the next one to do now is re- go to our pipeline and say replaced 1 dot yes to yes. Now with the column still selected, we're now going to replace 2 dot no to no. 2 dot no, we're replacing to no. Now we've replaced all the two dots no to no. Go back to our pipeline and now rename and say replace two dots no to no. Now our column health tells us that we have just two distinct values. Two distinct values. Drop down to the filter to confirm. Yes. Okay. Remember I said we're going to deal with four columns that have yes and no responses. So the next column that has a yes and no response, we're going to look at, these are all multiple questions. How you deal with multiple questions is different from how you deal with yes and no response. Our target for today is to see how to deal with yes and no response. Now, membership, does it belong to a community? This information is not necessary. The information we want to look at, pay, okay, yes and no. Ownership of the house. Does the ownership of the house have a bank account? 4 distinct, 0 unique. So we now need to clean this up. Go to the filter column and look at what are the various entries here. Can you see? We have yes, we have no, we have don't know, we have refused. So we're going to clean this up so that we have only yes and no. So replace value. Replace one dot yes with yes. I say okay. Now rename, replaced one dot yes to yes. All right, it says it already exists. So we use a new convention. Owner, bank accounts, bank accounts, bank account column. Yes. We still have more cleanup to do here. Column is still selected. One dot. We have another one dot yes with another spacing. Yes to yes. Hope we're all noticing how one dot, okay, it's like the spacing is twice. Let's try it again. Replace value. One dot yes. Yes with yes. Good. So now notice that this particular column spacing of 1 dot yes was different from the last column spacing. So it is important to when you're handling dirty data set like this, you follow it row by row. Now rename 1 dot yes to yes bracket second instance. Now let's now handle that of the no. The no is looks like two and double space. So column is still selected. Replace value 2 dots double space no no, but it looks like single space. Let me use single space and see if that would work. It didn't work. So let's use two double space no. Replace value dots space no to no. Okay. Good. So no has changed. So now we can see we have two sets of values here. We have this one that looks funny. So now when you want to pick special character, you click on it and you do this. Okay. Let's confirm to see if others have 98. 98 don't know. Okay, good. So now add and replace this to no. Copy, copy, replace value. Sorry, I didn't select the column. Cancel. Column should be selected. Replace value. Paste and say no. Power BI is working because of the size of the data set. Yes, so now we've reduced it down to 3. Let us confirm 3 distinct values. So we have one more value that needs to be changed. Refused. Okay. So now let's look for the column that has the refused so that we'll copy. Okay, now this is it. Click on it so that we can copy it as it is. Copy. Now go back, select the column, replace value. Paste, replace with no. Let's wait for Power BI, Power Query to finish up this particular transformation. Now notice that we now have two distinct values, that is yes and no. Now for this
So I
analysis,
think
um, the this chart was in my way. So this is a replaced special character. Replace special character. Thank you very much for that reminder. Replace special character to no. And this also was to replace special character as well. Replaced special character character 2, okay, character 1 to no. So we have our two distinct values for ownership of bank accounts in household. So the first column we're treating, the first column we the first column we identified or we're working with is there a breadwinner in the house? That is household. Where is that column? Now, why I'm doing this one by one is because each of the columns have different nuances. Because head of household. So this is the first column we treated. We're going to work with four columns. The next one we did is ownership of bank accounts. Where is that column? Ownership of
So
bank
please, I have a
accounts.
question.
Yes, please ask. Ownership of bank accounts,
I
second column.
noticed
Yes.
replaced value one and replaced value two. We haven't like renamed it. So is it like you're not renaming it, or just maybe it skipped your mind?
I'm not renaming it because but bulk of, okay, let's see, bulk of, if you see this particular pipeline had, okay, let me just rename because most of the process I'll have to be typing multiple. So let's see, okay, renamed renamed to dot no to no, okay, and then this replace renamed again. This one was also a kind of, where is the rename? And the size of the data set again is, so
I
but at
think
least
that
we're
one came
following.
up. Okay. I think that
Yes,
one
yes.
is not showing rename because you clicked on you forgot to click on the column
No,
before you
it's
copied it.
it just showed now. It just showed
Oh,
renamed.
okay.
I'm on the next one. Is the size
Yeah,
of the
the
data
next
set
one.
is actually, yeah, the next one I'm trying to click.
Oh,
Okay, good. Now the rename is now showing. So this also was renamed special character, special character to no, special character, special character 3 to no. Yes. So let's wait for it to load before we now move down to where we are. It's still loading. Now, when we started this whole class, someone was saying that dashboarding and the rest is the most tedious of a data analyst task. I'm sure some of us now will now realize where the most work is going to be done. For the past close to 45 minutes, we are still doing cleanup. So imagine if 252 rows, these 252 rows you are seeing here, were needed in this particular assignment, and then your stakeholder now tells you to estimate when you can get done with the job. One or two persons should tell me what time estimate or time frame you're going to tell that stakeholder. This one now is not two skill. This one now is your soft skill that has to come into play. So your stakeholder now tells you that he needs 100, because if you had gone through the data set, you will see all the questions. Each of these column is a particular answer to a question. Each of these column have multiple response. So your stakeholder tells you he wants he wants to analyze and to get answers from, out of this 252, to analyze 100 of this column. That you should please give him an estimate when you will be done with the analysis, and you give him a dashboard. So please, two persons should tell me what time frame would you tell your stakeholder. Nobody wants to talk. This is real life scenario we're talking about here. This is the kind of data set you'll be working with. Nobody is going to give you cleaned up data set in the real world.
Please, the question again, sir.
The question is, you are giving your people just came back from the field, because this data set is as a result of the Nigerian Economic Summit Group. They had ad hoc staff that were sent out to the 36 states of Nigeria. All right. Now the ad hoc staff, after their sampling and the rest, with their analysis of every day's job, various questions, you know. Now, this is what was loaded onto the data set. Now, the economic summit, the owners of the economic summit now somebody who now wants to know, some of the questions had to do with households that have bank accounts. Some of the questions had to do with household that has generator, household that are earning, how much they are earning, and the rest. Now, a stakeholder says he's interested in 100 columns, and amongst those 100 columns, you have questions that has to do with bank accounts, earning, how much are they earning, what is their present life situation, or their life situation, how bad is it? Is it very bad? Is it moderately bad? Is it like that? So now your stakeholder now says he wants analysis of 100 columns out of 252 columns. How would you answer that question? He now says that he wants an estimate of when you get the job done. This one now is not two skill now. This one is your soft skill now that comes to play. So how are you going to manage this stakeholder, his expectation, stakeholder expectation? How would you manage his expectation? Okay, Benga, Abraham, please, let's hear you.
It,
Okay,
it has to do
somebody
with
say 1 week.
critical.
Yeah, I'm listening. Yes.
It has to do with critical thinking, sir, which have to be like you have to put in the criteria given to you by the stakeholder to check the columns at which you will get to understand the decisions you want to make. So it will take not less than 1 week and above, more than 1 week,
1 week.
because it has to be a critical thinking, and it has to be a check over and over and again before submitting to the stakeholder.
Okay, good. 1 week. Okay. If you feel 1 week, 100 rows. See the trouble we're going through with just 2 rows. How many hours? Look at it. How many hours in a day do you think you'll be able to put to this? Okay, 100 rows. How many rows do you think you can clean up in a day? How many hours? So give or take. Give or take. If you tell the stakeholder to give you a whole month, you're still in order, because we're talking about 100 rows here, and you're not supposed to work 24 hours a day. At least you're supposed to work minus your break time. You're supposed to work at least, let's say you're supposed to work like 8 hours a day, you know and let's say you put in you put in 100 columns. We're talking about just cleanup alone. We've not even started talking about we've not even started talking about pulling out this thing. So a month is good enough time. If the stakeholder say no, why can't you do it in 1 month? Why can't you do it in two? Why can't you do it in 2 weeks? You now explain to him that this is multiple response questions, and there are errors in some of the rows. There are procedures in how to handle columns with missing column. You need to view and see the rate of errors. Is it up to 10% of the total data you have? Okay, doctor wants to say something. Yes, doctor.
No, right on, sir. I just want to add to it once you are done, so that
Okay, okay, okay,
we're
okay,
doing it real life. Please, right on, sir.
okay,
And
okay.
Gertrude, please mute your mic. Thank you. Yeah, good. Continue, sir.
All right. So you need to tell the stakeholder you need to check the rate of errors and the rest to reduce bias, because there is one thing about bias as a result of so many factors, bias as a result of those who are on the field, bias as a result of transmission of this information onto the platform. So, Dr. Victor, you can add.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. I don't know if my voice is clear enough. So,
Very clear.
and thank you for the question and saying this. People, please note it down. I mean, for people who have not been working on this kind of thing, you see, it's one of the most difficult part of doing handling projects when it comes to working in real life, right? Being able to allocate time or timeline to what you're doing. And that's why we use different project management methodologies. One of the common ones that I've worked with and they use in the field is called Agile project management or Agile. We have another Agile, we have one of those tools, Scrum or Kanban. That's in the software and AI or data science or data analysis and field. So let's assume that this is a product. We are trying to deliver a product. Now, understand, expand your brain when I say product. Now, for people who are thinking about goods and services or goods now, this is a product. You're trying to deliver something to somebody in form of a cooked answer. So you perform analysis and you tell them this is what you have gotten. There should be a product owner or the head of the team. Maybe your manager could be the product owner. The product owner in that sense is the person who is in charge of managing the relationship between you and the stakeholder, that is the owner. So maybe you were employed by whoever is the owner of this data set in Nigeria, the body in charge, and then they want your team or your company to analyze the data set. There has to be somebody liaising with them. Now it starts from the you understanding how urgent they need the result. That would help you to, because one important skill, like you said, is soft skill, is managing stakeholders' expectation. And one thing you can do is to deliver your results in stages. So we call those things deliverables. Per time, you have to be able to tell them that I will do this, I will do this, we will do this. So the first step is usually the data cleaning. But before that, you talk about ask the stakeholder questions. Because so many times the challenge is that even when you have started doing the work, you might not even know that the stakeholder doesn't even understand what they want. So they have not even communicated their problem or the result they are looking out for properly. Sometimes you might even start it and you realize that the data set they have given you is not even answering the question. It might not be enough. They might need more, maybe sample wise, or even the columns, the elements you need to answer those specific questions. So what you do is this. Firstly, we start by the product owner, that is the head of that project. Let me put it that way. Going to understand the timeline they have given them or how soon they need the data set. If they say they need this in 3 weeks, okay, or they say they need this in, then you have to go with the team and say they need this product so time. The question will be, what can we deliver? So if you give them a month, maybe you have looked at what you have done in the past and you're like, okay, this kind of data set will take us this, or you can give a day before you go back to them. When you look at it and look at the cleaning that it will take and say, okay, it will take us a week or 3 weeks to 2 weeks to clean data set. That's once the sprint is just 2 weeks sprint for that cleaning. Then the next one, it will take us this, it will take us that. Is when you break it down that way and you tell the stakeholder 1 month, they will understand. There is a reason why you said that, not just say a month and then boom, you don't explain to them why you are giving them a month. You break down the stages so they can understand that it's not just taking this data set, putting it in one Excel and coming back with pivot table or charts. No, tell them the processes. The second thing is that managing the expectation means that at a point in time, per time, you are delivering part of the work to them. When you are done with the data cleaning, you can communicate the result to them and say, yes, we are done with the data cleaning. We have 60 columns to deal with now. We have reduced it to from 250 to 60 column. In this particular, in data science, they call this dimensionality reduction. When you have too many columns or too many dimensions, it makes your analysis so difficult. So what you might need to do firstly is to put all of them in together and look at which column has the highest chance of giving us the result we want. Once you have discovered that, you do away with it. That's what Mr. Anthony has done by focusing on these columns that will give us the result and then ignoring the other ones, at least for now. So when you have done that, you communicate that to them. We have done this. You know how it feels when somebody is waiting for an answer. You have not gotten the answer, but you are giving them the updates of what you are doing. It helps them to calm down. Even if you need more time, you'll be able to go to them and say, we have done A, B, and C. But unfortunately, we are unable to do D. Can you give us more time? Then the person too can go back to the government or whoever is in charge and say, yes, they have started working. This is what they have done. Can we have more time? You get my point? Because to be honest with you, projects are not usually done at the expected time. We started one which was presented to you. It took us 6 months. Don't forget that people have other things to do. And you spend only 8 hours at work. That 8 hours used to be like breeze. It will just blow off and you are done. The week is gone. Do you understand that? So be careful of the time you allocate. Don't also allocate too much time because that will make your stakeholder run away. Somebody else will say they will deliver the work. And then if you have allocated time, that is a point where your team might need to add more people to the job. You understand that? And they say, okay, I think 4 data analysts might not be able to do this. Let's contract this thing out to another company, or let's add 3 more sets. That's why, okay, for me, in my current role, I was employed to join the team in doing the work. Then they will divide it. Do you get that? So before you allocate time, understand the time they need you to deliver. Then go back and discuss it with the rest of the team based on experience. How long do you think it will take us? Let's look at it, do a review. Like you said, it gave you the data set to go and look at it. From looking at it, you might say, this thing will take us like a month, a week. Then marry it with the time they are giving you to deliver and see how you can come together and meet at a point. But again, you might still not deliver at that time. What do? Manage the expectation by delivering at different points in time. We call those things milestones. At every point you have achieved this result, go back to them and tell them. And this happens in a product, like I said, in a project management environment where you have all these sprint planning, scrum meeting, and all these things. Thank you very much. I hope I didn't take over the whole thing. I spent too much time explaining, but this is for your interviewing skill so that you can be able to speak as though you were doing it properly. And this is an internship for you. This is how I see it because we are discussing as a team working on this particular project. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Victor. So I think it now makes sense to all of us. You would now see how what we're delivering is different from maybe what you may have seen elsewhere. Nobody is going to give you pretty data to work with. So that said, now we're done with column number 2. I hope we can all still see my screen.
Yes, sir. We can see your screen, sir.
Okay, awesome, good. So now, column number 2, ownership of bank account. We're done with it. So now the next one, you can now see the kind of questions. Household ownership of radio or TV. All right. Household ownership of generator. So this one's also yes and no column. So we said we're going to deal with 4 columns. So the next column I'm actually looking for is the one that has to do with tax payments. Ownership of car. So you can see all the kind of questions that are involved in these 252 columns. So we're looking for the one that has to do with tax payments. Even ownership of air condition is also here. Tax payment. So we'll just go through it one after the other. yes and no question. Income tax payment is not this. Tax payment in the previous year, that's the column we're looking for. Yes. Paid income tax in the last year. Remember, the first one is, does owner of the, is there a head of house? As a breadwinner of the house? We've cleaned up that one. The next one is ownership of the house. Does it have a bank account? We've cleaned up that one. Now we're now on to the paid income tax in the previous year. So we're selecting the column to see the column health. It is still loading. Good. So it has loaded. Now it's telling us that we have 2 distinct and 0 unique. So now let's look at the kind of entries here. Yes and no. Now, so that we don't run into the problems that we ran into, now we're going to look for the yes and click on it, copy it, so that I wouldn't waste time creating so many pipelines. All right. Now replace value. Sorry, I made, after selecting, I should have gone back here to select before I say replace value. Okay, so replace value. You must select the column first after you've copied. Now I'm going to paste it as it is and replace with yes and say okay. Now, okay, good. Yes, so rename our pipeline. Replaced one dot yes with yes and say okay. So next value, let's wait while it loads. Good, it's done loading. Click on next value, copy it the way it is written. I'm saying Control and C. Click on column, replace value. Control and V. Replace no. Say okay. Good. So it's still loading. Good, it's done loading. So we have 2 unique characters. Let us now say replaced two dots no income tax. 2 dots no in income tax column. Income tax column. Let me also add that same English under this one as well. Click outside to be sure. This one I'm seeing, I see it's trying to double select. Okay, good. So right click and add income tax with yes in income tax column. In income tax column. Good. the data set is really large, so it's I want to be sure I'm on the right pipeline before I move to the next stage. Good. So we have three questions we have looked at. So to confirm that with two characters we're working with yes and no, so that's okay. So next column that would be of our consumption for our use, paid use tax or property tax, yes and no. So the first column had to do with household, is there a head of the house? Second column had to do with um, bank accounts. Third one had to do with did you pay income tax last year? So let's see another question that could be of relevance to a stakeholder or a business person who wants to invest in Nigeria and is meeting the national economic paid tenement rates. Let's see which other one. Paid market levies and tax levies. Paid other taxes last year. Okay. You may not have paid your income tax last year, but you paid other taxes last year. So this is the fourth column. Let's look at this column. All right. So I hope we are taking notes. First one is household. Household, let me just quickly write down. Second one is first one household. Second one is bank accounts. Bank account. Third one is did you pay income tax last year? If you said no, then did you pay other tax last year? Paid other taxes. Paid other taxes. So if the answer is also no in some cases, then know that that person is a good Nigerian in quotes. So now we'll look at it, two distinct values as well. So let's look and see how the nature of the value under the filter. Now notice how I am using the filter column, the filter pane, the filter drop down here for guidance. Remember in the one that had to do with bank accounts, you had four. In a yes and no column that should have yes and no, you're having four entries. So okay, so the first one we're going to deal with this to clean up the yes, waiting for it to load. It has loaded yes. So Control C, select the column, go to replace values. Go to replace values. Now Control and V, replace value with yes. Say OK. Paid other taxes, yes. All right. Paid other taxes, yes. So come to the pipeline, rename, replaced 1.yes to yes in paid other taxes. Now, still two distinct values. So the next one now is no. Control and C. Go back, click on the column, replace values. Control and V with no. Say OK. Good. So now it has loaded. Now rename, replaced one dot, sorry, two dot no, to no in paid other taxes. So we have our 4 columns that are relevant to our particular use case. Let's wait for Power BI and Power Query to load. It's still loading. Good. So now the next step to do now is to unpivot. Now you select, there's a term called unpivot. You'll see what it means. You select the columns of interest. Okay. Select the columns of interest, column 1. So we're starting from the rear. Paid other taxes. Paid other taxes. The next one is income last year. My hand is on control. So where was I? We're trying to select. Starting from, let's start from the top, which is household. So household, head of household, ownership of bank account. Yes, we have this. Then household is before ownership of bank accounts. The next process we're trying to do is to unpivot. Household, okay, good. Household, okay, good. Household is selected. Okay, good. So this is what we're going to do on pivot. On pivot only selected columns. That's when we're done selecting. Now next one is household, bank accounts. Yes, household with bank accounts. So we selected it. All right. So just so we see that we have 2 selections. When you are selecting, take notes, you're not going to click on the body of your column. You click up here. But some of you, when you start doing this on your own, you might now notice that it's not working. But when you were being taught, it was working. So number 2, household. Then the next one is income last year. Income last year. Paid income last year. Paid income last year. Paid income last year. Hand still on control. Then the final one, paid other taxes last year. Paid other taxes last year. Now imagine if we were selecting 10 columns like this. Just imagine. So once again, you see why some data analysts run away from quantitative and qualitative analysis. And you might see some jobs, if you want to do freelance, telling you specifically that they must see that you have skill in quantitative and qualitative analysis. Have I passed paid other taxes last year? My hand is still on control though. Paid other taxes last year. I guess I've passed it though. I think I've passed it. Paid other taxes last year. Paid other taxes last year. BI don't they pay me. Paid other taxes. See it, paid other taxes last year. So I click on it. So now confirm, let's confirm now that we have 4 columns selected. This is column 1. Remember, hand on control. Column 2. ETL process, getting to 2 hours. Oshe. Column head of house. It was a wrong head of house. You see why you should verify what you're doing. So hand on control, on select, and look for the actual one we're supposed to select. Head of household. This is now 3, and then bank accounts. Okay. This is 1. Where is bank accounts? Bank account is supposed to be number 2. It's not whether we have generator. We're looking for bank account.
You just passed it. You just passed it.
Hey, thank you, my brother.
Yeah.
I don't they pay me. No worry. We'll go soon stop. Bank accounts. Bank accounts. Bank accounts. Yes. Thank you, my brother. So hand on control. So once again, let's verify again, because if we don't verify, the pivot will not work. It will now start, everything we have done will now be 0. So 1, 1, 2, 2. Next one should be income tax, paid income tax last year. Three, hand still on control. 4. So hand still on control, right click and say on pivot only selected column. So now we've unpivoted only selected column, and our dear data set is giving us an error, an unexpected error. Now, the error can be one of two things. That we have irrelevant columns, but let's see. Now we've unpivoted only selected columns, and which is this. So go back. Now I'll take us back here. Bring us back before we unpivoted. Now I'll cancel these other processes. And cancel this as well. Now we've gone back to the columns where we started from. That is now that particular error that we saw was saying about our null values. Let's just wait for Power BI to load. So this is where where is the first column again? The bank accounts. Still looking for to be sure that I deleted those the last two step of the on pivot. So to be sure we still have our bank account still here. Now, so this is what we're going to do. We're going to for the purpose of our analysis, we're going to pick 10 columns that we would work with. And then what we'll now do, when you pick those 10 columns, you will now discard all the other 200 and all the other 242 columns, because they are not relevant to our present task. Because if we say we are going to now start selecting those 252 in the next 2 hours 30 minutes, we're not going to be done, and there is a class after my class. So what I'm going to give us now is the task we're going to do. So take note of the columns as I'm calling it out. Our analysis now, we're going to analyze the yes and no columns. You've already seen how I cleaned up 4 columns. Now we're going to add 6 more columns to it, and I'm going to tell us what our problem statement is. The problem statement is that we want to see how many households, you understand, are earning income and have a bank account. And of those households that earned income, we also want to, our analysis is how many of them paid income tax in the previous year. All right. If they didn't pay income tax in the previous year, how many of them paid other taxes? Then we're now going to add other yes and no questions. Other yes and no questions you would see. So the first question, please, everybody take notes, is the first one that has to do with household. All right. That is if there is a household, yes or no. We saw that one. Then the next one, if there is a bank account, all right. Then the third one, if I'm too fast, you let me know. The third one, income last year, if they paid income last year. Okay. The fourth one, paid other taxes last year. All right. Then the next one is a household, the owner of a car. Look at it here. Household ownership of a car. It has 3 entries. So you're going to clean it up till it is just yes and no. See, you're going to remove, so take notes, when you come to household, you are removing this one that says 98. Don't know. So under household ownership of car, household ownership of car, ownership of car. As you're cleaning up, you delete 98, don't know. So that's the 5th column. What will constitute our 6th column? Ownership, computer or laptop. Computer or laptop, all right? You clean it up. So 6th column, computer or laptop. Computer or laptop. Are we all following? Have we all taken down the 6 columns that we're going to work on? I would want to implore that I have 30 minutes to review what you guys have done on Wednesday. After the Wednesday class, 30 minutes, I'll review what we have done. So we have Monday to Wednesday to do this cleanup. So column number 6, household ownership of laptop. I'm looking for another column to add the balance 4 columns. There are 4 more columns that have yes and no. Paid income tax last year, we've pointed that one out. That is it. Look at it here. Now, paid use tax, property tax. Well, that one is not relevant because we're already capturing other taxes. Let's see for a yes and no, another yes and no question. Paid other taxes, this is it. Good. Have you ever refused to pay a tax or fee to the government? So this is now our question number 7. Our column number 7. Have you ever refused? Have you ever refused? Column number 7. Yes and no. So you will clean up. Let's wait for it to see the number of let's wait for Power BI to load. It's still loading. Good. So the third distinct value should be the refuse. Good. So you change this refuse to no. Take notes. So we're on what number now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We're on 7. Okay, so we'll just work. Let's work with this 7. So that is going to be, we'll work with 7. Then Wednesday, we will now do the remaining step of the analysis. But I would want to be sure that as many of us will go through these data sets, you do the whole cleanup, and then you delete. You do the whole cleanup, then you now delete all the other. When you subtract 7 from 252, that's 255 255 columns, and we'll now work with the 7 columns. So we'll pause here because we cannot start handling the deleting of 255 right now. So we'll all do it at our own time. So I would stop sharing now, and